Hi everyone, and welcome to our video on deductive reasoning versus inductive reasoning. This is the introductory video to topic 4, which I hope everyone's pretty happy to have. We previously went over topic 4 in just a game day once, but now we're going to have some notes for it. I know a lot of people have been struggling with the difference in inductive and deductive reasoning, so hopefully a video and some examples will help out with that, okay? So we're going to start off with this little video, just going over the difference between them real quick, pretty naturally, and then I'm going to have a video example for two different kinds of reasoning, and we'll go through the reasoning together and we'll see if you can figure out what kind of reasoning we're using as we're going through it. Okay, so first off, let's just go over the definitions. What is inductive reasoning and what is deductive reasoning? So inductive reasoning is what detectives like Sherlock Holmes use. Yes, Sherlock Holmes claims to use deductive reasoning, right, the powers of deduction, but he doesn't. He actually uses inductive reasoning. He makes predictions, which are used as leads, and those leads could be used later for deductive reasoning. Okay, so what does it mean to use inductive reasoning? Well, we're saying it involves predictions, right? Leads. So maybe something like an educated guess. With inductive reasoning, we use observations like the evidence that Sherlock Holmes collects to form conjectures or conclusions we believe to be true based on those observations. So a conjecture is essentially, like I was saying, an educated guess, right? It's like a pattern you recognize that this typically will be true, or that you think this is likely to be true. It could be very likely to be true, but it's not a guarantee. You see, conjectures are only predictions of what possibilities are more likely than other possibilities, right? Think about it as whenever we're using inductive reasoning, there's a bunch of things that could also be true based on what we're seeing, right? There's all these other possibilities of what could have happened. Sherlock Holmes, for example, often has multiple suspects, and based on the evidence he gathers, he will start to think some people are more suspicious than others, right? So they're more likely to be the suspect. As he gathers more and more evidence pointing more and more towards one person, they become more and more likely to be the suspect. But it doesn't guarantee it, right? There could be many explanations for why that person is so suspicious or how that evidence came to be. Maybe they're being framed, for example. Now, other outcomes are not proven impossible when you make a conjecture. They're just less likely to be true. So as a classic example, if I was to give you the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, what number did you think comes next, right? Maybe pause the video and consider it and come back in 10 seconds or so. Okay, you probably didn't need 10 seconds, right? You probably thought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what's probably going to come next. But 5 isn't guaranteed to come next. Many other numbers could have come next, right? I might not have just been counting by ones. Maybe I was reading numbers off the wall in front of me, right? And it just so happens the numbers go 1, 2, 3, 4, 76,222. You don't know, right? There could be many things producing this list. But is that likely? No, right? I was probably intending 5 to be the next number I was going to say. I was probably just counting by ones. But your theory, your conjecture, right, to be more specific, is not a guarantee, which means my possibility, 762,222, is not impossible. It's just less likely, right? It's not impossible for it to come next, but it's less likely. So that's the big difference, as we're going to discover, between inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. So let's look at what deductive reasoning is. That's the really new one, right? We've had a whole topic on inductive reasoning. This is all review. What about deductive reasoning? So deductive reasoning is used by forensic scientists often. They will use it to do things such as identify chemicals present in a body. That's a certain fact, right? We just know there is a chemical in this body. That fact may be used for induction later on, but just identifying that when this chemical is present, it reads off this result on a test, that's deduction. So what is deduction exactly? Well, deductive reasoning uses statements we believe true to establish the truth of additional statements that follow from them, arriving at a conclusion. So like I said, right, when this chemical is present in a body and I apply this test to the body, it produces a positive result. See how two statements we believe to be true, chemicals present in the body plus test that finds chemicals present in body and reads positive when it does. So when I apply the test, if chemical is present, then true statement, right? Now, conclusions must be true when used with deductive reasoning if we believe the previous statements are true. There is not a way for, in this case, a result to appear that the chemical is present in the body unless it's actually present. Now, you don't want to read too much into it, right? There's a famous case of like, if we're using drug testing and you eat lots of poppy seed bagels, you might come up as positive for the drug. that's not actually you coming up as positive for the drug, it's you coming up as positive for opiates in your system, which that doesn't mean that you're doing anything of a drug sort, right? It just means you have opiates in your system, which could have come from poppy seeds, right? So there's a possibility, you see, that we can induce based off of that, but all we can do deductively is say you have opiates present in your system, right? And then you might use that to deductively reason either you've done some drugs or you've eaten a lot of poppy seed bagels, you see? Now, what makes deduction unique and different from induction is that when one possibility becomes certain fact, other possibilities become impossibilities. Deduction can uniquely eliminate possibilities. So I like to remember the difference, right? As induction is introducing things, it's adding things. We're coming up with new conjectures, new patterns that we can use to predict stuff. It doesn't remove any possibilities. It just adds some little like footnotes to a possibility saying this one's likely, right? This possibility, I like that one. That one's likely, but it doesn't make it guaranteed. Deductive reasoning, when it says this possibility must be true, right? This is what's happening. All the other possibilities we had fall away. They're not available for us to use anymore because they're not the thing that came true, right? That's what makes deduction powerful. It can eliminate possibilities at the same time by making some possibilities certain facts, which really narrows down the range of possibilities and lets us certainly conclude things. Because inductive reasoning can never eliminate a possibility, it can never tell you something for sure. All right? So let's try to really lay that out. Let's try to write down some notes on exactly what's the difference, right? Inductive reasoning uses observations, right? Leads to conjectures. It's based on likelihood, not guarantees, right? And uh, it can only help us understand possibilities, right? So it only makes us think that certain things are more likely to be true. So I'm going to say it can't eliminate possibilities, right? So that's just a list. And now you can kind of see that if these things are true for inductive reasoning, we already know that some differences are going to be implied, right, by the ones we have here. So this one eliminates possibilities, right? It provides us certain truths, and it does not use conjectures, it reaches conclusions, and it's based on facts or statements, right? So you can see just at a glance the real difference here. Observations lead to conjectures by patterns or predictions, right? And then facts lead to conclusions by logic or I would say inevitability. Fancy way of saying it, but basically think about it like this. If I have 3 suspects for a crime, only one of these 3 people could have done it. I know 2 people didn't do it, then the third one must have done it, right? I've eliminated 2 possibilities, leaving only one possibility, and because one of the 3 must have been the criminal, I know who it was, right? That's the idea of like inevitability, process of elimination, as you might know it by, right? So hopefully this way of laying it out makes a little more sense. Maybe this is what you put down in your notebook. And hopefully what we talked about with inductive and deductive reasoning makes a little more sense now too. All right. I'll see you in the next couple videos, which are going to be examples of us using some reasoning and really getting a feel for it and then trying to figure out what reasoning we just used. So see you then.